Special opportunity for me today is I got to interview a coach that I've been looking up to for quite some time now. Last couple of years as I crossed paths with him, I've always kind of admired the work that he does. And he's also an author who just recently published a book, which I hope you guys pay attention to. Check the links in the description here because he's got a lot of life experience. It's going to help a lot of people. And so check it out. Make sure to get a copy of his book. But this coach is somebody who's played at the collegiate level, played in Louisiana for high school, and played under one of the best high school basketball coaches in the world. And we're going to talk about some adversity, preparation for college athletics. We're going to talk about coaching and the preparation that goes in on that and what makes the difference between like how do coaches actually level up in their game. We're going to be talking about a lot, like as a coach, how do you love your players? He'll share a really good story about his high school coach and how 20 years after he played for him, how that coach still made an impact in his life during a really, really important event in our guest's life. So make sure to tap into this one. It's a really, really good interview here on the Game Time Guru. So
what time is it? Game time.
This is the Game Time Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's up, everybody? Welcome out to another episode of the Game Time Guru podcast. Shane Larson here, host of the show. Excited to be here with you guys for another interview. I never get tired of this. I was talking to a guy at work the other day. He said, how long have you been doing this for? I said, 9 years. And I've published an episode every Friday for 9 years. It will be 9 years in January. And he goes, holy cow, really? Do you ever get tired of it? I said, no, I never get tired of doing these interviews. I never get tired of doing this podcast because I get to learn from cool people. And today, as you guys heard in the introduction, we have an awesome guest, someone that I've been wanting to bring on the show for the last 2 years, really. Just been following you. We kind of crossed paths in the coaching sphere on the club circuit. And now I'm like, I've been following you ever since. And I get the opportunity to have you on the show. His name is Lee Toldson, and we're going to talk to Coach Toldson here and get to learn about his story. So thanks for joining the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Shane. I just want you to know that it's truly a blessing to be on your show. I've been following you. I love what you're doing. I love how you connect with the people. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Oh, heck yeah, dude. The whole, like, I guess you could say the honor or I don't know. I'm excited to have you on here. So like, it's all love over here. I'm excited. And so really appreciate you. And I want to go back in time real quick though, because what I was saying prior to us recording is like something that's interesting to me is, I've only known you through the coaching sphere. I didn't know your history a little bit. So talk to us a little bit before we get into learning about Coach Toldson and what you're doing now. I want to learn about Lee growing up and kind of what your background was, because there were some things that kind of transpired when you were younger that kind of set the stage for how you were going to, set that foundation and build that foundation for when you got older. So talk to us a little bit about your background.
Well, yeah, Shane, so I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I grew up in the inner city in Louisiana, come from a single parent home. My mom, she did most of the mother, father, growing up, she had to play both roles. And I lived in a tough inner city. And, a lot of the things that I've been through, most kids don't go through. And if it wasn't for my coaches, my middle school coaches, my high school coaches, having mentors like that in my life, I don't know where I would be to this day. And I'm truly thankful for my upbringing because it's taught me a lot. And it taught me how to go out and work hard for everything that I've gotten in life. I had to work hard for everything, after high school, I went off to college, got a college degree. My mom was the first one in our family to do it, and I followed. And then, played college basketball at Western Wyoming. And in high school, I'll go back to, high school. I played for one of the greatest high school basketball coaches to ever coach the game. He's in the top 5, Kenny Almond. You can look him up. He's one of the best high school basketball coaches to ever coach high school basketball. And he's a big mentor. He taught me a lot about life, and I carried that with me. And there's a lot of things that he taught me. He used to always tell us, he says, hey, after basketball, life is going to start and you're going to face adversity. And when you face adversity, how are you going to deal with it? And so he was hard on us, But I'm so thankful that he was hard on us, because a lot of those things that he talked about happen in life, you know.
So let's unpack that a little bit too. I really appreciate that, because I try to explain that to kids when I'm coaching them too, just from a coach's perspective, because we all see it a little bit different. We know what's coming, and it's interesting, right, Coach? Because I talk to the kids, and it's like a lot of the times when I'm coaching the kids that are like 17, 18 years old, that are getting, to that final stage of their high school career. Sometimes I've coached the unsigned seniors on the club circuit a couple of times, and they always have that like aha moment of like reality. Some of them will go on to play outside of, high school, and some of them realize there's always that moment where they realize, oh, okay, maybe basketball is done now for me. And then the real life hits. And as soon as they get into the real world, it's hard for them. And so I always try to explain that to them, and explain to them, this is what sports can do for you. This is what, we're trying to build for you. And so this is why, if you've ever had a hard coach or hard practices, it is going to develop. But like, what did your coach do specifically? You talk about how Kenny was such a good coach in that regard. What were some of the specifics that he did for you guys and pushed you through that really did help you out?
And Shane, you hit it on the head. Like, a lot of times I feel like, as coaches, and we're kind of getting away from it in a little bit, because a lot of times we're not being truthful with the players. We want to tell them what they want to hear, right? Kenny Almond didn't tell us what we wanted to hear, right? He held us accountable, and that was big for me. I remember a quick story, and if he hears this, he's going to chuckle. I was late for practice, and I had to run the entire practice. But I'll tell you this, I wasn't late ever again, because he held me accountable. And I didn't even dare to go home and tell my mom, because I already knew what mom was going to say. Why were you late? And I think now we get away from that. Now you do that now, you might find yourself in trouble as a coach. But he held us accountable, and accountability is a big piece, right, for an athlete. And that helped me when I went off to college. I was on time. I made sure I got the class on time. I made sure I got the practice 15 minutes early. Those little things were instilled in me from him.
That's so interesting. And I want to ask this, because you could translate that or transfer it into the real world, like the corporate sector. I mean, there's a lot of bosses out there, a lot of leadership that will tell you what you want to hear. And there's some that will hold you accountable. And there's got to be a fine balance, in my opinion, because like from a coach's perspective, I guess, what made it different for you? Maybe it was just your personality, but like, what made it for you, Coach, where you accepted that, and then you continued on being accountable? You were on time moving forward throughout your college career too, but you weren't doing it out of fear, right? A lot of people get that. They do it out of fear. Now they're performing out of fear, so they're not actually performing at their best. Where's that balance? Like, how did he do it to you? How was it that he did it to you that way? Like, he held you accountable to where you were like, okay, I respect that, and I'm just not going to be late again, but I'm still going to be able to perform, because I'm not performing out of fear. I'm just making sure that I'm on time. Like, I guess, I don't know if I'm asking the question right on that.
Yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying 100%. And let me break it down so you can have a better understanding of my high school coach. And when you go look him up, he reminded me of, he was actually really good friends with Bobby Knight.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he acted just like Bobby Knight.
Oh, wow.
But what made me, take that, the criticism or him holding me accountable, he also pulled me to the side and said, hey, I believe in you. I love you, And so when I got out there and able to perform, I knew he had my back. Even though he got on me, he held me to this standard. And I'm so glad he did hold me to that standard. But at the same time, I think you can hold players to certain standards, but at the same time, you have to let them know that you love them too. Right. And so he let me know that. And we're going to talk, and we could talk more about Kenny Almond here in a second too, because I have a really cool story that shows that love between a coach and a player too.
Well, I want to hear about this, because I'm a big believer in leadership, that's okay to show love to the people. So like, that's one of the things I try to do my best of. Like, I get to know people on a personal level, where it's the kids I coach or the people that I'm working with that, report to me in a corporate setting or whatever it might be. Like, I want my own family, my kids, I want to make sure that they know that I love them, and I'm not scared to voice that. And I think that does, because I've had the same experiences with some coaches where I'm like, okay, like, they love me. My boxing coaches were the same way. They love me, but there were times where they had to make sure they were, hindsight, they were always telling me the best thing so I wouldn't get my face smashed in. That was like their whole point. And so it's like, if you show love, it's okay. And I think there are some leadership members, some coaches out there that are scared to do that. They're scared to let you know, because it's almost like they feel like they're letting their guard down at times. And I don't understand that. It's just not my DNA. But I think that's an important piece. But I would love to hear the story that you're about to share. So if you wouldn't mind sharing it.
And well, Shane, and that's something that I was going to talk, and you probably already noticed, but in 2017, I had a heart attack. I was in the best shape of my life, and in the articles online, you can Google it. But I was in the best shape of my life. I was doing CrossFit, but I was coaching. I was traveling. I went back home to Louisiana to visit family and friends. The day before I did a CrossFit workout, I was fine. When I went to bed that night, I woke up and I couldn't stand up. I couldn't breathe.
Gosh.
And from my health background, I have a degree in kinesiology. I didn't have any signs the night before. I didn't have any signs of a heart attack. And when I stood up, I couldn't get up. And so I fought it for like 2 hours thinking that, okay, maybe this pain is going to go away. Maybe it's heartburn. And then finally, I was staying with a good friend of mine that I went to school with. And I was like, hey, I need to get to the hospital. Something's not right. And so immediately he gets me in the car. He takes me to urgent care. Because again, I'm healthy, doing CrossFit competition, no one thinking heart attack, And so I walked into urgent care, and right away there was a ton of people in the waiting room. I'll never forget this. And a lot of times in bigger cities, when you go up there and there's a ton of people waiting, they get you back right away. That's a problem. That's an issue, right? And so I walked up and I told a lady, hey, something's not right. I can't breathe. I've been fighting this pain for 2 hours. And she looked at me and she was like, hey, we're going to get you back right away. And I'm so thankful for that, because when they ran the test, it showed that I was having a heart attack. And they come back in and they said, hey, we have to get you to emergency surgery right away. So they take me off in the ambulance. Wow. And I'm like, wow, everything is happening fast. And I'm living in Wyoming at the time. All right. And I'm in Louisiana. So I get to the hospital. There was already a team of doctors waiting for me. And I'm like, okay, this is serious. And from my background of growing up, my grandfather passed away of a heart attack. My grandmother passed away from a heart attack. And I was there. I was only 12 when my grandmother passed away, but I was right there in the back seat, and so I witnessed that. And so I knew what I was facing at the time. And so when they told me it wasn't a normal heart attack, that's when I began to get scared. They told me I was having a massive heart attack. And most people know it as the widowmaker, the one that takes you out. And the doctor's like, hey, we have to get you back. We have to have surgery right now. Right. And so I go back surgery, but I look at my friend. I'm like, hey, I'm signing papers saying that, hey, you might not make it out of the surgery. And I look at my friend, hey, this is what I need you to tell my kids. And they're bawling. They're like, I can't believe you telling me all these things right now. And I'm like, hey, I might not make it out, but this is what I need you to do for me. And I'll never forget, Lester Brooks is someone that I grew up with, a really close friend of mine. He was right there with me the entire time. And so when I went back in surgery, I put everything in God's hands. And about hour and a half later, they woke me up and said the surgery went well. They put a stent in. And I went back to recovery. And the thing that gets me to this day, a lot of people was in the waiting room. The doctor looked at me and was like, hey, somebody was watching over you. He said, there's no way you can fight the widowmaker for 2 hours and still be here. And he says, if it wasn't for you being in shape and whoever was watching over you, you wouldn't be here. But when I came out of surgery, I had a ton of classmates and friends in the lobby. But you know what stood out the most?
What's that?
Was when Kenny Almond, my high school coach, 20 years later, walks into my room. And he looks at me and says, what do you got yourself into this time? Get up. It's time to work. It's time to fight. Now you're fighting a different battle. But that DNA that he built in me, all those years that I played for him, helped me through what I went through in the next phase of my life after the heart attack. just that toughness, being able to work through things, work through adversity. He was there 20 years later. That's how I know that Kenny Almond, my high school coach, truly cared for me and all his other players. He was hard on us, but we knew he loved us.
Man, that's crazy. And no, I did not know that story to that depth at all. Like, that's crazy. I got chills hearing that. That is incredible. Dude, I got like goosebumps on my arm as we're talking. Can't even see them.
Yeah,
Freaking
yeah.
A, dude.
You
That's
can. It's online. You can Google it and read about it. I don't talk about it a lot, and and we, like I said, but that was a phase. But having Kenny Almond, my high school coach, still be there, I mean, that just shows how much he truly cares about me and all his other players. He's always there.
that right there. That's a lasting impact for many people. That's a great example. So shout out to him. That's incredible, man. That's a note that I'm going to be taking for a long time with me. So I appreciate you sharing that. As you guys, as you moved on from high school onto the college world and you went out to Wyoming, I was curious to know, like, what made you choose Wyoming of all places? You're out, in the South, Baton Rouge, like you're in Louisiana, dude, and you go
That's
out to Wyoming. Did you have connections in Wyoming, or was this just happened to
that,
be a school that they had that you could play at?
Hey, that's a good question because sometimes I even ask myself that going from Louisiana to Wyoming. The college coach at the time, Coach Woods, I went to Western Wyoming. He had connections in Louisiana. He always recruited kids from Louisiana, and so he was recruiting me and some of my other friends, and so we all went on a visit at the same time. And when we flew in, we actually flew into Salt Lake City. And so we flew into Salt Lake City at night and we like, oh yeah, this is great. This is beautiful. And then as coach kept going, we looked at each other like, man, where's coach taking us? We don't see anything. This is rock bottom because Western Wyoming is in Rock Springs. And we're like, oh man, I don't know where we're going. But it was that decision. I had a few of my teammates who signed, but that decision was really me talking to my mom and her saying, hey, it's probably best that you get out, and experience life, change of scenery, get out of that environment. I felt like if I would have stayed in my environment, there would have been too many distractions. So Wyoming was one of the best things for me because that's like my second home. I love Wyoming. And I played at Western Wyoming and finished and got my degree from the University of Wyoming kinesiology. And like I said, then I started coaching there.
Man, that's crazy though. I mean, Wyoming. I'm from Idaho, man, and I still can't stand Wyoming. Like, it's just so cold to me. It just seems just like crazy. But I can't even imagine the culture shock. But I do want to, not just culture shock, but just like the overall, like that's a
Oh,
much different part of living. And yeah,
yeah.
Salt Lake might give you a little false sense of hope, and then you're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
It wasn't shame, but it was a culture shock for me. Like when winter hit, I called moms and my moms and I said, hey, I can't do this. I need to come back home. And she just said, no, you're going to tough it out. And so I was like, I didn't even have a big jacket at the time. And
Oh,
you know what my mom sent me? She sent me a fur coat.
oh,
And
dude.
and I was walking around the first day with a fur coat, and I'm looking at people. I'm like, "Hey, no one has a fur coat on right now." And like, I'm the only one walking around in a fur coat. And so, yeah, it was different. I was ready to go back to Louisiana when winter hit, and the wind is what got me.
That's above anything. The wind, dude, is worse than everything, dude. It just makes everything so much worse. Oh man,
Yes.
that's crazy. Well, I wanna ask you this then. So you had a pretty tough high school coach that held you guys accountable, a coach that taught you how to get through adversity, and then you go into the college world, the community college level. Talk to us about like the transition from high school ball to college basketball. What was the biggest transition for you, coach?
One of the biggest things, and I have to say this, I want to say that I was pretty prepared going into college
Yeah,
because my high school coach, he had us ready for the next level. He ran
that's what I
practices
figured.
like college, and he was tough on us. And he had us prepared defensively. I knew the terminology. Offensively, I knew different offenses. He always talked about IQ. He had us ready. And there's no knock. There's some great coaches out there, but sometimes I feel like we're missing the boat. We're not teaching the game all around. Sometimes we focus on talent, and then you've seen it. A lot of kids that's talented, they get to the next level and they're not ready because the college game is so different. Like when you drive to the basket, now those defenders, they're a lot quicker. That lane closes up fast, right? We used to do drills like that in high school. But I want to say, like, one of the biggest transitions for me, it wasn't basketball, because my coach had us prepared for that next level. It was more me having this freedom, right? Of oh, I don't have to check in. I have to get myself up, and go to class and make sure that I'm on, get the practice on time, or all those things. And so it was that responsibility that I had by myself now. I didn't have moms telling me, hey, you have to, school's getting ready to start, or I didn't have anyone on my back, and so it was me. But again, I'm so thankful for my parents. I'm thankful for my coaches, because they had me prepared for that. I want to say that's like one of the biggest things for me, because I was ready going into college as far as on the basketball court.
From the athletic side, it wasn't that big of a transition, but on the, like, I guess just the normal day-to-day, the student part of it and just living part of it, it was a transition. I want to talk about that real quick and piggyback off what you said, because I don't get to talk about this often. When I started, I was a freshman at Boise State University, and I was going there right out of high school. I lived here in Meridian, Idaho, which is about 15 minutes away from Boise State University, 20 minutes away. So I lived at home. But I'll tell you what, I had a similar, like, even that, dude, I wasn't living on campus, but like my days that I was at school I was like, oh, it's only 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, sick. And then I was there, and my classes were so spread out. I was there from 9 a.m. to like 4 p.m. And then I had boxing practice in the afternoons after that. And it was nearby the school. It was about, 10-minute drive from the school. So I was doing that. And I remember, Coach, I was like, I had so much time on my hands. I'm like, oh, dude, 4 classes and basically like 6-7 hours. I was at the school the whole day, like just chilling. My downtime, I'm playing pool at the sub, like the student union building. I'm like playing bowling. I'm just like chilling. What I could have been doing is my homework and studying, but I was just like, I had so much time and I wasn't disciplined that I legitimately like got myself into trouble. So I tell kids this every once in a while, that I got myself into a lot of trouble, in the sense of I got on academic probation because I failed one class because I stopped being disciplined in my studies, because the studies are a little hard. Like it's hard. Like you have to, no one's checking in with, like, you either do it or you don't get the grade. So I ended up failing art my freshman year in college. So I served a church mission for 2 years after that, came back, and I couldn't go to Boise State until I had to get my associate from College of Western Idaho. I had to reapply at Boise State when I was older. I had to go through that because I was on academic probation, so I couldn't get student loans or anything of that nature. And so I got myself in trouble from not being disciplined and not being ready. And I wasn't even an athlete, like as far as like I didn't have no scholarships, wasn't playing for the school. But I always tell kids that I'm like, I didn't even have that going on. I can't even imagine playing sports on top of that. You've got to be ready for both parts of it, because it is going to be a transition. You get a little bit more freedom, and if you're not disciplined, you can get yourself in trouble a little bit. So I don't know. I had to second that a little bit, because it's crazy.
Yeah. That's the key word, being disciplined, because you get to college and like you said, a lot of times we don't talk about this, but that's a big part when you're a college athlete. Now you go from high school classes to practice and home. Now you have college practice, then you have to go to study hall, then you have to get go back to your room and do it all over again. You have a full schedule. And then there's those times when you leave. You got to keep up with your work. Sometimes that could be overwhelming, right? Yeah. And we've seen it. We've seen great athletes go to college, and it's not, they don't fail because they're not good enough, right? Sometimes they make those mistakes because they're not going to class.
Mm-hmm.
They're not disciplined outside of basketball. And so that's where I say that I'm thankful for my mentors that I had, because my coach had us ready for on court, and he also had us ready for off court. But again, that was still a huge thing for me, having all this freedom.
I'm so glad you brought that up. And that wasn't even an expected discussion tonight, to be honest with you. Like, I wasn't sure where it was going to go on that front, but I really do appreciate you bringing that up. I think it's not spoken about enough. And it's not to scare people. It's just to prepare them. Honestly, coach, like no shade given, but I graduated from Meridian High School, class of 2006. Let's be real, dude. Like, you just show up to class and you can pass the class. Show up to class, you'll pass it. I didn't assert myself enough to, like, I wasn't a 4.0 student. I did fine. 3.0, 3.5 at times. Like, I was doing okay, but like, I didn't really learn much. And so that's why I was like, I thought I could do the same thing in college. Oh yeah, great. Just show up. You still gotta do a little bit of work, So,
Yeah.
And I'm glad I learned that, because I learned a lesson. And then a couple of years later, I was back on track. And I feel like I have been much more disciplined in the later years of my life because of that, but I had to learn it the hard way. So, going in just real quick, touching base on the college side of things as an athlete, because as you know, we're well connected with some of these younger athletes that have aspirations to play at the next level, whether it's junior college or any kind of 4-year university. What would you say was like your favorite memory in your playing days? Did you have one? Was there a favorite place you played or anything of that nature?
Just like college or just
college ball. I want to hear about the college ball side.
So I think like some of my favorite moments were just and this might be that typical answer, right? But I'll break it down, like, of just being with my teammates and learning. And I'll tell you why college is different than high school, because when I got to college, I had teammates from all over. One of my best friends, and he was my roommate, Tim Hudson, is from Australia, and we're still good friends to this day. I had to learn a lot from him. He had to, and he learned a lot from me. Right. And so just learning like the different cultures and being around different athletes and learning from them was like one of the things that I remember the most, and so I wouldn't change that, and just all the time that you spend on the road and things like that. And so I think that's one of the biggest things for me, because sometimes that's hard for players to going into college.
That is so cool that you said that. And I want the listeners to know this. Kids that I've coached, kids that will be coached later on, like, that is such a big piece, like the brotherhood aspect of it for the men, the sisterhood aspect for the women. But like, you get to learn from so many different people, and you might have teammates that you never talk to again in the rest of your life. And that's true too, but you still like have memories with those people, some good, some bad, but there are some like lifelong friendships, eternal friendships, I would say, actually, that like are formed in some of those areas of your life. And I think that's really cool you brought that up. Like, where else would you have met Tim? Or like, where else would you have met this guy? You probably wouldn't have. It's likely you guys wouldn't have crossed paths. It's very rare that people cross paths, right? There's like, it's weird how things are working. I believe the man upstairs is playing chess, and they put people in certain situations, but sports brought you guys together. And I think that's really cool, man. Right. I want to say this real quick, and I want to get your opinion on it fast. I tell the kids that are going on to play junior college ball, this is funny. When we play in club ball, right? You know how club tournaments are. Sometimes you show up at 9:00 at night to a random tournament in California. There's nobody in the gym, and it's like dead, because like it's a travel day and you show up and there's no one in the gym. Or it's an early morning game on a Saturday or a Sunday, third day of the tournament. Nobody's in the gym. Maybe you guys, like, because we're from Idaho, so we travel to California, but like the California people, they don't have any parents there, but we brought a couple of them. So we've got like 10 people in the stands, maybe. I always tell the kids, hey, this is kind of how junior college is like, because in the NWAC, at least here in the western part of the states, in the NWAC, like, there's games where you don't have nobody in the stands, and there's games where sometimes you do. But like, I think some of the kids have this false perception that, in high school ball, you get 1,000 or so sometimes, a couple hundred people every once in a while. Like, students are popping off, but not all the time in junior college ball. It's not like they don't have that school pride all the time. So you don't have a full stand. So you have to bring your own energy. So my whole point of that is I always try to teach them, like, you've got to bring your own energy. There's no one going to do it for you guys. You don't have a ton of fans in the stand. So how are you going to do that? Did you experience that either as a player or as a coach?
Yeah, it most definitely. Like, I tell players all the time, you have to create your own energy. All right. I don't care who in the stand, you still have to create that energy. And and I always use Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman didn't care who, Dennis Rodman started out at a small school, but that energy he brought was like every day he got to the league, it was the same thing. All right. If you're waiting for someone else to give you energy, then you don't need to be on the floor. Right. And so I did experience that. So for anyone who is playing at that JUCO level, just know there's going to be times where you walk in the gym and there's not going to be anyone there, but you're not, if you're only playing for people in the stands, you're doing it for the wrong reason. When
Facts.
you step on that floor, it should be the love of the game. You should block everyone out anyway. All right. And so I always say, hey, if there's no one in the gym, that's less stress. You go out there, you plan, you can just play at that point, and so yeah, if you're going to play at that level, there's going to be times that yeah, you walk in the gym and there's not going to be anyone there cheering you on, and you have to create your own energy, and you do that by just how you prepare at practice, and having a love for the game, and that you want to compete because you're playing against someone else. You don't want them to get the best of you. You're not playing against the people that's in the stands. You
Oh,
know,
I love that, man. I'm so glad that you have that experience, and that's one of the things that you talk about too. I think the kids that I coach get annoyed with me saying it, but then they always like realize that once they get to college, they're like, "Oh, okay, this is what coach was trying to tell me." Like, I'm not trying to say it just to be like here's some fluff to try to get you pumped up and try to get you good. No, it's like it's reality. So I love that you preach that. That's awesome, man. So, coach, on the coaching side of things, when you transition over to the coaching world, talk to me about that, like what the transition was like when you started coaching, because you've been coaching for what, 15, 16, 17, I don't know, like what
yeah,
okay.
16 years now.
Yeah,
And
16 years. So tell me about that. Tell me about the transition and what's made you love the whole art of coaching.
when I first started, I started out in, Rock Springs. I got a little experience from my college coach and learning from them, and being that student of the game. I've always been a student of the game. But I got my first coaching job at Rock Springs High School as the sophomore coach. And I just love it wasn't even the X's and O's. A lot of people think, and I'll say this, a lot of players think they can go right into coaching, all right, just because you played. And that's not true. That doesn't make you a great coach just because you play. There's so much more that you have to learn about coaching. But it was the relationships that I was building and the connections that I was building with the players that got me fired up. I was like, okay, I can motivate these guys and they'll go through a wall for me. I can build this relationship with them and they're going to run through a wall for me. I did that for my coaches, but experiencing it from the sideline was totally different. And that made me want to even learn more and start building even more, connections. Right. And so I started at Rock Springs High School. And from there, I fell in love with coaching and I wanted to know more. And I started putting myself in positions where I was working with other college coaches, going to camps, volunteering my time, learning the game, the X's and O's. And then I moved to Douglas, Wyoming, where I started on the girls' side as an assistant with Cody Hellenbolt, one of the best high school coaches to ever do it in the state of Wyoming. I think he won about 6 or 7 state titles, and we won one together. And then from there, I took over the boys program and had a great run. There was years, we won districts like 2, 3 years in a row, made it to state, lost in the semifinals. So I just fell in love with the game, and then the X's and O's, and I fell in love with that and just became a student of the game. And I'm still a student of the game. And then I got opportunities just through connections. I got opportunities to coach at a pro level in the TBT with Louisiana United, the region. I got to coach some great players, and I'm telling you, when you coach other pros that play for great coaches like coaches Kentucky, Coach K, and things like that, and playing in the pros, that could be nerve wracking. But a lot of those players that I coached, they respected me because they knew I knew the game, and that was just me putting in the time, and I was able to take on that role and feel comfortable taking on that role. And I love coaching in the TBT. I coached there. I coached in the TBT for about 3 years, and one year we almost won it. We lost on a. I still say it was a. If the TBT is listening to it, I still say it was a bad call. But we lost the overseas elite. They do Elam ending, and it was on ESPN, and everybody thought it was a bad call, but we get a steal, we could have scored, and the game was over. They call a foul, and Pargo goes to the line, and he makes the free throw, and in the next game they go on to win the $2 million.
I
So
remember that. So
yeah,
I remember that whole scenario, dude, and
yeah,
it's just crazy. Oh my gosh, like oh wow, I remember, and I want to say I saw you. Did you have a post of this on your Instagram too? Because I
yeah,
remember, yeah, dude, because that's wild. Funny
yeah,
story about TBT. I actually sucks because I've been following them since that started. I thought it was the greatest like tournament ever. Like such a cool idea, such a cool format. And I had one of the gals that started it on my show, but I interviewed her and then I didn't take the like it was I have a couple interviews in the bank. So I went to go download the interview off of the cloud here and just start editing it. Apparently it was deleted from the cloud after 14 days. And so I actually never got my interview to post publicly from the TBT, but we went through the whole like history of TBT, the idea behind it, the Elam ending, and so forth.
yeah. I know. And Dan Farrell is someone I know. He's from Louisiana, New Orleans, one of the founders of the TBT. I love what those guys are doing. That's exciting basketball to me, and to be a part of it is really exciting. And so,
yeah.
I got an opportunity to do that. And after I left Wyoming, I moved to Idaho Falls when Thunder Ridge opened up in 2018, and I was the first coach to coach there. I stepped down like 2 years ago. But one of our best seasons was we went 23-3, I think, and that's the year we had one of the best players in the state, Lawyer Driggs.
Yeah, I had Lawyer on my show
Yeah.
that year. So Driggs was a stud, man. Like was he not was he 40 50 90? He had like a 40 50 90 season, I thought, where it
Yeah,
was 40% from the 3, 50% from the field, 90% from the free throw line.
free throw line, yes.
Pretty sure he had a 40 50 90 season that year. You guys should have gone to state, dude. That was brutal, dude. Just the timing of things and just
But yeah, and it's just and it's just how the game goes sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
We beat Rigby by 20-30. I think the first game we beat them. The second game by double figures. We were up 13 at halftime. That's just a game that haunts me to this day. Like, and we had a really good team. We had Teo Johnson on that team.
Yeah.
Teo Johnson now is at Utah State, one of the best safeties in the country. And so we had a really good team that year. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it is though. But what's interesting on the topic of coaching, it's interesting though, because those are what, like, as a coach, I feel like myself, even like I'm a huge competitor. I still love to play ball. Like I'm city leagues and stuff. I still compete. I'm a competitor though. Those losses, man, they stick with you forever as a coach. For some reason, they hit so much harder as a coach than they do as a player. And even the wins hit harder too. It's like, yeah, dude, like you get hyped because you're excited for your players. You know the effort that they're putting in, and you know what you've put in. It's a lot of sacrifice and stuff. And it's one of those things that always sticks harder. But I wanted to ask you this. Like you said, you're a student of the game. And one of the things I've struggled with as a coach, I'm really good at leading people. I know that's one of my strengths and my superpowers. I can get people to play at a different level. But when it comes to like in-game adjustments, like that's one of the things I've always like. I would study other coaches, like see what they do. I like to see how other coaches react, how other coaches do things. But I struggle a little bit, Lee. Like I'm not that great with in-game adjustments. I'm like, okay, shoot, when do I go into a zone just to throw off the rhythm? When do I do this play just to kind of like, how do we get an easy bucket to stop their momentum real fast so that we can, reset some things? I struggle a little bit with that. At what point in your coaching career did you start to really like understand how to do the in-game adjustments? Because sometimes those are the coaches that are the hardest to go against because they know exactly when to throw something in there to adjust the momentum of the game.
Yeah, and that me starting out again, that's why I say it doesn't matter if you're a player, college player, whatever. When you go into coaching, it's totally different because it's those little things right there that you also have to learn. And I got really into the adjustments when I was around other college coaches. When I would go to clinics and I would sit and I would watch, I would listen. I got an opportunity to talk to Bill Walton for 20 minutes at the Nike clinic. And I waited in line and I didn't realize he was going to talk to me that long. And I'll have to shoot you some pictures. But he talked about that. He talked about being able to make those adjustments And he said that's a lot of times that's what sets good coaches apart, and they say players play, but coaches also have a role too. You have to understand the situation of the game because your adjustment sometimes might help your team get over that hump.
Yeah.
Like it might be a play at the end. It could be, I think this summer, because I coached with Premier. I think we had about, if you talk to Colin, we had about 9 buzzer beaters this this year we won. And this is late game adjustments that I'm trying to draw up stuff at the end of the game, you know. But those are important. The players still have to make the plays, but we have to put them in position to
Right.
do that. And I think I really, like I said, I got into it just by, going to those camps and listening to other coaches speak about the importance of that. And then once you learn that, then you start planning it in practice. All that stuff happens in practice. You should be doing that, preparing those late situations in practice. I had a huge chart. It's about 2 pages of scenarios. And every day we would do these different scenarios, and I'll have the players roll dice. If they roll a 5, okay, if you're a starter, hey, you're out, you fouled out. So we have to play this scenario without you. It might be down 2, in this situation. And so every day in practice, we had a situational drill, and players always, thrive on that. My players knowing, okay, this might happen in the game. All right. And so the biggest thing I think is just preparing them in practice, and I would do that because certain things are going to happen in practice.
Man, this scenario thing, just having that's awesome. And I
Yeah.
think that's the best way to do it. You can't always replicate everything, but you can replicate a lot of things and get the kids prepared, especially mentally and psychologically, just like understanding, okay, this isn't going to be comfortable. Sometimes best player might be out. My best player might have fouled out. So we got to find a different option. That's awesome.
Yep.
That's cool.
And Shane, think about it too. As coaches, you might call a timeout, you're down 1, right? And you get to the huddle and you only have a 30-second timeout. We've all been there as coaches, as a player in the huddle, and the coach is drawing up something, and you're like, man, what is he doing? You try to scribble, we're doing it. But you have to prepare them in practice. They should already know it. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, you go here because you know how it is. And so a lot of, like I said, a lot of those scenarios should be done in practice. I've been there as a player where I watch my coach just draw up stuff, and I'm like, oh man, I'm glad I know this, because they already prepared us in practice. And I do that,
I do it all the time, man. Oh my gosh.
And so, yeah.
No, dude, it's funny because I was in a high school game. We're playing in a really important game. It comes down to the last minute, and our coach did draw something up, but it wasn't something he was drawing up a situation for like sideline out of bounds play. And my teammate wasn't paying it. He couldn't figure it out. So we get out to the court. Crowd's still like going loud. The band was playing because the timeout was still happening. And he literally looks over. He's like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I just remember like, I can't explain it to you right now, bro. I didn't even realize what I was supposed to be doing. So anyway, I just love it as a player and as a coach. We all know what it's like. Oh, it makes me smile. So question on this. So you have a lot of talents. You've been through a lot of adversity. You have a lot of experience as a teacher, as a coach, as a player, just as a leader and a mentor. And you've taken those talents and you've written a book. Something that I want to do in my life is write a book with some of the stuff I need to compile all my thoughts and stuff. And there's different areas I want to go. And I envy people who envy is not a great word to say, but I am very I admire the fact that you have been able to write a book. So I see this book come out, the No Excuses, Embrace the Challenge, like the ABC method for burnout. Talk to us about the book that just recently came out and where we can get it. Tell us the whole story behind it.
Yeah. And so first off, I want to just say, hey, if you have all those thoughts, do it, figure it out. I didn't do this by myself. All right. I had a team. All right. And I'm so thankful for the people that guided me through this.
Yeah.
Never wrote a book, I have all these life experiences. And like you said, I was just putting stuff on paper. I would wake up in the middle of the night and jot things down. Right. And so I am thankful for everyone who helped me And I wouldn't be in this position also if it wasn't, for all of my life experiences.
Yeah.
And I want to, my wife, she actually the one pushed me to finish. This has been 3.5 years in the making,
Wow.
right?
Okay.
A lot of ups and downs of me stopping and saying, I don't know if I can do this, taking a break. But then I look at it and I look 3 years ago, wasn't the timing. Because at the time, the title of the book was the driving me,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So I've changed that, and so I just look at it that it wasn't the timing. And I want to say this. I want to say, I want to thank, like, my kids, my wife, all the teachers I interviewed, the coaches that sent me, quotes that's in the book. Um, I want to thank, like, my family, my friends, all the students and players that I taught, because this book wouldn't be anything without them, right? And so the ABC method is really my all of my heart on paper, right?
Yeah.
And it's from my years of teaching, coaching. I experienced burnout myself, overcoming a heart attack. A lot of people talk about success, but Shane, most people don't talk about the burnout. They don't talk about the moments where you feel overwhelmed, tired, and you start questioning your purpose in life, right? And the ABC method, align, balance, and connect, provides you with different strategies that you can use to help you overcome burnout. A lot of people deal with burnout, and we're starting to see it in the coaches world, even in the workforce, that coaches are only lasting at the high school level maybe 2 to 5 years now.
I align with you 100% on that. I don't know anyone actually in my like inner circle that hasn't experienced that to some degree, especially those who are high achievers, like people who are trying to get to that next level. They're trying. But like in the world today with whatever profession it is, especially coaching, like there's a lot of it. There's a lot of
Mhm.
external pressures. So like, can you give us, just like, without giving away the house, talk to us about one of the principles you speak of in this book?
Yeah, so without giving you a lot, for an example, analogy that I used, I talked about a car, right?
Okay.
And when you first buy a car, that thing rides smooth, right? And you're all excited. And what happens when it gets out of alignment? You can feel it,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can feel that it doesn't ride the same. You sometimes you can lose control, and if you don't get it fixed, what happens? It breaks down,
Right.
right? And that's the same thing in the coaching world, the education world, just the regular workforce. Like, if you're going through something and you don't take care of that, eventually your body's going to break down. Your body keeps score, right? And so it's important that, and I've been there. I've been there as a coach. I've had those years when I first started, I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
Everything was yes, yes, yes. And then I go back, and I wasn't taking care of myself. And I go back and I think about my heart attack. At the time, I was going 100%, and I never said no. And I sometimes wonder, was that the reason? Because the doctors to this day still can't figure out what caused it. You know,
Yeah.
was I burned out? My body was telling me something, and I ignored that. And so that's a lot of people go through that, because sometimes we don't want to, and you've probably been there, where you don't want to say no, and then it's yes to everything.
Then all of a sudden you're just taking on so much stuff. Right? Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
that's a really, I like that. Um, that's super important. So who is this book tailored for? Right? Like, is this for anybody?
It's
Is it
for,
specific?
when I did it, I was thinking about, my experiences as a coach, a educator, and I interviewed a lot of teachers too, and I talked to a lot of coaches. But anyone that's dealing with burnout, because I have so many different strategies and things that, if you're dealing with it, you can use. Even if you're not dealing with burnout, at some point you're gonna feel it. And there's strategies in this book that you can use that help you overcome, some of the things that you might be going through. All right.
Absolutely.
And so one of my quotes, because I have quotes on every chapter. One of my quotes is I talk about how burnout pulls you away from your why and alignment pulls you back.
Interesting. I
Think
like
about that.
that. Okay. Yeah.
Burnout pulls you away from your why and alignment pulls you back.
Definitely interesting. I like it though. It makes
Yeah.
sense. I dig it, dude.
Yeah. And so it like I say, it was a lot of hands that helped me with this. And that's why I think it took so long. But the thing is that everybody was telling me, hey, you have a story. You need to put it out there. You have a story. And my heart attack is a big piece of this book.
I admire that. I'm a huge proponent of sharing your story, and I love the fact that you've like shared some of those experiences that you have through the form of a book. So tell us where we can find the book.
So you can find it on all platforms, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Ngram, Spark. So on all platforms.
Okay. I'm going to put the links here in the description. You guys have probably already seen it if you're listening to the show. You're probably already checked the description of the podcast. So go ahead and get yourselves a copy of the book and check this out. Do you have aspirations to write any more of them? Look at this. There it is. That's what it looks like. And I'll be getting myself one too. I'm going to be buying this. So
I got you. I got you.
do you have aspirations of writing another book in the future? Or was that one
You
of those
know,
things where you're like, man, I don't
it,
know.
man, it was one of those. It's one of those things where I don't. I have to wait. I have to wait because it was a long process, and I want to be able to get out and speak to other educators, coaches, students, and I want to see how that goes. And then one thing too, I also understand from both sides of the spectrum as a player, as a student, the things that students go through, the burnout that students face too. So if I did it again, it'll be more geared towards the players and students.
Yeah, I like that, man.
Yeah.
Super cool. Well, before we wrap this up, I know like I've been taking a lot of your time and I apologize for that, but I just wanted to make sure I see Kobe Bryant behind you and a lot of the quotes on the wall. And so I am curious on the Mamba mentality. It's just like obviously there's some inspiration there. Do you have a favorite lesson or a favorite quote from Kobe Bryant himself?
So one of the biggest things for me with Kobe was one of my favorite basketball players of all time. MJ is up there, then right there is Kobe. I got to see Kobe his last year when he was doing his lit tour. I got to watch him up and close in Denver, and I was right there courtside. I got there early. I saw him come out and warm up. And one thing that stuck with me is just how he prepared for games. I don't think people really understand that the little things, and a lot of players now, they don't want to focus on the little things. You see guys like Stephen Curry, they come out and they do form shooting before.
Yeah.
They just don't Stephen Curry just don't step out and just shoot threes. He does the basics. Kobe Bryant would do form shooting, before every game, just starting out right by the rim, those little things, then stepping out, the way he prepared for games, and that mentality. He was ready, not just basketball ready, but he had the knowledge of what other teams were doing, other players. He studied the game. Coaches can only do so much, but when you have players that a coach puts you in position to be successful, but then you have a player that goes home and says, hey, I'm going to watch more film. I want to see when this guy crosses over. I know exactly where they crosses over to their left. They're not good with their left hand. They're going to pull up. All right, maybe coach missed that, but you have a player like Kobe, he's picking that up. And so that's one thing that I respect for him, just his knowledge, his IQ of the game, and how he played it, and that's what made him so great.
Man, it's so interesting. Some of those high performers, especially Kobe, I mean, he's one of the greatest of all time, obviously, at the sport. But I remember there was a time I was at a Jazz game against the Mavericks back in the day, and Dirk Nowitzki was there warming up, and he was in his like sweatpants, whatever you want to call them. They were rolled up halfway up his leg. But I am not joking you. We were sitting there during the warm-ups. We were right next to the court, so we were just watching my buddy and I. He didn't miss a shot during his warm-up. And he was doing these like random. The crazy thing is, people used to. They're like, oh, he would do his little 1 foot fadeaway, is what Dirk Nowitzki was famous for. He practiced those. Like he was shooting warm-up shots on one leg on both sides of the floor, and he was doing it from multiple angles. But he was doing that over and over. And I'm not kidding you, Coach. Like when I was watching him shoot, it was like teardrop poof, like swishes every time. Like, and there was like that sweet swoosh that he'd have because he was so tall. And he was just doing this like over and over and over, like 15 minutes, didn't miss a shot. And I remember sitting there just watching him in awe. And I was like, man, these great players, they do these warm-ups and they do these things over and over. And like, that's just a warm-up before a game. This isn't before a practice. That's just one of his shoot-arounds before a game to get ready to play. And no wonder they're great at their craft because they're putting in this preparation and doing that. So that was just a small piece of it. It wasn't at Kobe's level, but I got a little taste of that too. And I was just like, man, that's awesome. So that's really cool about Kobe. I want to ask you though, like, as we the final thing I want to ask you is like, what is the biggest life lesson that the sport of basketball specifically has taught you, Coach?
One of the biggest lessons that basketball has taught me is that I would say that there's so many different lessons, right? And my high school coach once told us this, and sometimes I get emotional when I talk about this. He brought in a basketball one day, and that basketball, he took the air out of the basketball, and he looked at us and says, one day the game is going to move on, but the ball is going to go flat, right? If you leave it out for 15, 20 years, right? And he says, all you hold in that basketball is your memories and the lessons that you've learned, and so that always stuck with me. And he talked about, in life, when you face adversity, how are you going to get through it? How are you going to push through it? And so a lot of the things that I learned from my coaches are still in me, still part of my DNA. I learned a lot from my parents, but like from the sports side, there's so many life lessons that I learned, and it's not just one thing for me. There's a lifelong thing, because I get it. I've had great coaches that taught me more about life than basketball, right? And so I hold so many memories. But one of the biggest things I think is just being able to believe in yourself, push hard, never give up, and always go out and work for what you want in life, and don't expect anyone to give you anything, no matter what your circumstance may be. You'll never hear me, Shane, make an excuse about anything in my life. Like I told you at the beginning, I'm proud of my upbringing. It's taught me a lot. And so that's like one of the biggest things, and I tell my kids that all the time too, always fight for what you want, never give up, have that type of attitude, and don't expect anyone to give you anything.
Man, so cool, Coach. I really do appreciate your time, man. Like, and all your insights and wisdom. It's been awesome chatting with you. It's been a long time coming for me. I'm just grateful that you took the time to chat with me. And I'm sorry it took more time than I was expecting to take for you, but I do appreciate your insights and wisdom. So I'm going to encourage everybody to get a copy of the book, listen to this interview, share it with somebody that could use Coach's words here. Like I really, that's the whole point of this, is to get this out there. So get a copy of the book yourselves, check it out, and then give Coach Toldson here a follow here on his Instagram page and everything else. So, and if you guys want to, utilize him for his services, maybe he can come speak to you. There's a section on your website. I saw that they can contact you if there's any speaking engagements or anything of that nature. So, I mean, I hope this leads to something, because there's a lot of people who can use your message. So I really appreciate you, Coach. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me, man.
Yes. Shane, thanks for having me on. Like I said, man, keep doing what you're doing. I love it. That's
appreciate
just
you
being consistent the way you are every Friday.
every Friday, man.
Shane, before you let me leave, I know I can sit here and talk all day, but I forgot to mention that my high school team, my junior year, we went 37-1. That was the first championship that Kenny Almond won. 37-1, one of the best teams in the nation.
37-1.
37-1. We won the Louisiana state title. Yes.
Holy cow, man, that's crazy, bro. And you got to be part of history.
I know. And after that, Kenny Almond just started running them off. But yeah.
That's awesome, brother. Well, I appreciate you, and everybody else for tuning in. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Make sure to hit the subscribe button on whichever podcast platform you're listening on, because we'll be coming to you next week with another interview. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.